We could try. We gotta hurry. Might be too late. Oh well, too late.
No, take.
Oh, too late. Here we are, walking down the street.
Here, just plug it in.
Happy. Nah, that's fine.
Okay.
Everyone we meet. Okay, let's get started. All right, Outlaws, Berserkers, I am freaking really happy today. So today marks the first day where we've all finally decided, and I will bring it up right here. Today is the first day of the day. We all agreed to name the official fighting style with the giant sword the Colossus technique, or Colossus. I've been kind of playing with this idea for months now. If I actually wanted to turn this into a sword manual or a sword style, scripted, written out, put on a manual, just like the old-fashioned sword manuals. Some that are very thorough in length, and unfortunately, many of them are not. The reason behind it is because I think sword art and swordmanship is kind of dying off or being thrown out of whack, and it's not really being properly presented to a new modern audience, which is also why I'm responding to Shadiversity's his video right here. And before we continue on with that, too, like, my main mission behind this is to do something amazing and great that nobody else has done before. Like, the internet is filled with people talking about giant swords and blah blah blah, running their mouths about it, but nobody actually really training to do it. And I want to respond to Shad's video here. I think this video was meant more like for fun, as a joke. Shad does many great videos on giant swords, many that I was actually planning on responding to. But this one, I think it's more as a joke, as funniness. But being someone who actually has trained with a giant sword, the 48-pound steel behemoth behind me, I think it'd be appropriate for me to do a response. I actually left him a message 4 days ago where I said, "Hey, Shad, full body ballistic movements are key. Core and shoulder girdle strength and endurance must be built up over time to develop a body capable of exerting the force necessary to swing a massive sword." So says a guy training with 40-pound steel strength there. Never really heard back from him, and all I got was a weird text me on Telegram, which... yeah.
Wow.
Which used to say Shadiversity, but now it says Star Wars Explained, so must be one heck of a bot farm going on. So anyways.
You got 2 thumbs up.
Well, I gave myself a thumbs up because...
You only got 1 thumb up.
Gotta get the algorithm moving. Here, I'll give this person Storm PL a little thing going there. Okay, so this is not an attack on Shad. I actually really like him. I've watched him for years. I liked a lot of his videos. And I decided to do the heavy sword training in response to all this crazy lockdowns and whatnot. I've been doing it since January. I actually pulled up my first one right here where I kind of like... It was January 23rd, 2022. And this is our other channel we left behind. I was getting kind of goofy and silly, and I put a quick video together to kind of announce that I was going to do this. First I was going to do like a world's record right around April of this year, but just it didn't happen. There's a lot. It takes a long time to be able to train with this type of weapon.
Not to mention get the 100 targets that we're going to have you slay.
Yeah, and there's one thing too I want to point out is that this is dangerous. This is actually the only real time that I trained with this sword. With the Dragonslayer without having my body armor on, that now people should be more used to seeing me wear all the time, where I have the body armor right here. And you can see it quite clearly because...
This is what happened.
Yeah, I literally injured myself right there on camera. Actually using closely to a technique that Shad kind of had in his video. All right, enough with this. Let's move forward. So again, this is just for fun, but not really. It's also just responding to like what he's talking about. Okay, so right off the bat, no. I know he's not being serious. I'm not attacking him, but absolutely not. That is so ineffective. It's dangerous. And upon upon impact, you will transfer that energy to whatever your target is. Okay, and that's one thing I want to talk about first about big giant swords and training with giant swords is, excuse you, there's a lot of misconception about what is actually what are the mechanical properties, what are the physics behind it. There's a lot of misconceptions, I think, because people quickly jump to like mathematics diagrams and levers and all that stuff without taking into consideration that we are human bodies. We're organic, and our muscles and brains and everything else are constantly adjusting to balance our weight and the weight of the objects that we are moving. Shad and myself, we're not an inert object, okay, that's immovable, whatever, like exerting this much force to apply this much kilograms or whatever, pounds. I use pounds. I know he's Australian, so he used kilograms. But my point is, you actually can swing a sword that's very heavy without being thrown all over the place. And I'll give you guys examples of that later on. But this one right here is, it's goofy. It's not effective. I'm pretty sure Genny's just being silly. I've actually seen this done on another video of a kid just twirling it around over and over and over again, and it's goofy.
But his also wasn't very heavy, and that's kind of the point too. The reason why you're like with it's wooden sword, right? So we know it's going to be, you know.
I'm Shad, and as you can probably tell, I love giant swords. I've already done several videos exploring kind of the mechanics of what it would be like to fight with a giant sword, the interesting limitations that would actually arise. And we came to some interesting conclusions in those videos, like the swords need to be made out of some type of super light but still really strong fantasy material. You would also need to be super strong, but interestingly, one of the things that you would also need, probably even more than super strength, is super weight to keep you grounded and not thrown off your feet when you actually use them.
So that's not correct. No. When I swing this Dragonslayer around, and I'll give you an example. Here is a video I did on the 4th of July this year. I was not in the best of shape. I was still, you know, struggling, kind of get up there in reps. I think I only destroyed like 13 targets.
13. And this was about 6 months after you started training with it,
yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So I was tired. Towards the end, you'll see me. I just got totally gassed. So that's 48 pounds. And I don't get tossed around. Now, what you'll see, okay, there's that one kind of shoulder technique. And even this one, I'm not doing that great. So I'm using targets low to the ground, but I'm not really being thrown around. Look at my legs. Generally what I do, see that? Boom. I missed. But my point is that my legs tend to go in front of each other. And what it does is it helps absorb the impact of when the blade comes around and down so I don't fly forward. The problem with what a lot of people tend to say about it, and this probably wasn't the best example for me to do, I've got way better sword videos right here for you guys too.
Well, also, so I'm somebody who I don't weigh a lot. I can't even pick the sword up off the ground. We could look at the video of me trying to pick the sword up off the ground, but if somebody is light enough that the sword would outweigh them to the point where it would throw them over, they're not going to be able to pick it up.
Engage your hips. Right. And again, the mechanics are completely different. So with Jenny trying to lift it up, she's trying to lift weight that's not even as heavy as she is, but it multiplies just because of the angle of the leverage. So this may be a 48-pound steel sword, but in reality, when it's being swung around, its weight and energy potential, or the energy, like the amount of energy it's impacting upon the target, is often multiplied. So for Jenny to actually get it up, there's still a good, I'd say about, if you look at the handle, about 5-10 pounds, maybe more right here, close to like, you know, the middle point. And then she's trying to lift up really this blade right here. Well, the issue is that really it's not 48 pounds. It's probably more closer to like 96. Because when we did the mathematical equation of it, it's actually kind of doubles when it's out so far and you're trying to lift it up. So with it being flung around and chopped, and let me find a better video for you guys here rather than this one. Here we go. So again, boom. My body takes the impact. Twist. See how I kicked off with my other rear leg? I'll do it again. Watch. I'm getting tired. That one wasn't as good. It's also on my left side, which is not as strong. I think I do it one more time. Just because I'm stubborn, I want to do it one more time. Okay, and kicked off. Nope, that one's a complete failure. Okay.
But even still, even though the blade was falling forward, it didn't knock you off balance in any way, shape, or form for you to fall over.
And this one's also another example of that again. Different day. Boom. Kicked forward, up. Bring back down. Forward. Up. So this is kind of like when I'm more like doing more advanced training. Now this one right here is hard to do because it's an uppercut. I'm trying to exert enough force to get this 48-pound steel sword, move forward, fling it up, and then bring it up to here. But I never, even though it looks like I'm kind of wobbling here, I'm actually not. Just kind of like my body adjusting itself and like kind of adapting to the weight being moved around.
And this ground has so many gopher holes all over the place.
It does have a lot of gopher holes.
It's very unsafe ground.
Very, very ridiculous amount of gopher holes. Here's another example where I'm chopping wood. So when you chop something like right here, and I go down, this is Jenny making me wait while she gets into position. So thanks, Jenny.
You're welcome.
Holding it.
You're getting a good shoulder girdle workout.
Yep.
Look at that core stability.
Way too long. Oh. Okay. Right there. Boom. So the target took the impact and the energy that was exerted by the Dragonslayer. So I didn't really get flung forward. And a lot of these aren't the best examples either because their target's low to the ground, but they'd still bring up my point. It's like you won't necessarily be flung forward. The amount of energy you take will have to be quite significant in order to launch. But keep in mind that the human body, that's me playing around with the stump. The human body is capable of lifting weight that weighs much more than its own self. Like there's squirrels that have like massive glutes, legs that can lift hundreds of pounds more than they actually weigh. Same thing with men as well. With the Dragonslayer, it's ballistic movements. It's full body, pick them up, go.
But if we could pretend we actually met some of those requirements, there is another question I haven't explored yet, and that is, how would you actually fight with them if you could actually use them thanks to one of these justifications? That's exactly what we're going to be exploring in this video.
Okay, so how would you actually fight with them? Now, although this video is old and probably not the best example, so let's double the speed here a little bit. It's an impact weapon. It's not a personal one-on-one weapon. It's not a weapon of finesse, as you can see here as I'm trying to hit these damn jugs. It is a weapon. Oh, I think I actually started off too. Okay, there we go. It's an impact. I call it like more like a siege breaker weapon. It's not really meant to be used in like a one-on-one duel. It could be against a person who's not like a professional swordsman, who's not very skilled at it. But it's not meant to be one-on-one finesse. It's an impact. I would count it more towards like heavy cavalry. A small, very small group of individuals, men obviously, who would come in at a certain point in the fight in order to like break a shield wall or break a certain formation or cause chaos in the ranks. Because by yourself, at like especially like here where you see me, it's not a good condition to be in. I would need support. So I would need additional infantry alongside me in order to support me and back me up through the whole process of using it and through the fighting formation. So it is not a solo type weapon at this time. Now, as I've developed, I've gotten stronger and better and perfected the technique. Yes, it actually has potential of being a one-on-one weapon. But again, I don't think it would be against somebody who's an experienced, like skilled swordsman. It has to be somebody who's average, somebody who's not very skilled, who doesn't really know what they're really doing. And the intimidation factor would be very, very large.
We'll start off with this smaller super large sword, and even though it is not as big as certain two-handed swords, it is super big for a one-handed sword, specifically in the width and the length. Much longer than your standard one-handed sword, unless you get into kind of rapiers, but much, much wider, therefore much, much heavier. And this would affect your movement, but this one, honestly, not so much, because if we were to pretend...
Okay, so I wanted you guys to keep a note of what Shad really knows what he's talking about when it comes to swords, especially medieval swords, European swords. I believe he also has experience with Japanese swords as well. Swords in general, right? And also many different types of weapons. A heavy focus on the sword techniques that these people use is they use a lot of wrist. This is a plastic training sword. It would really hurt still if you hit it, but watch how I can still move my wrist by moving it like this. It's like just simple, small movements. I can't do that with the Dragonslayer. The Dragonslayer is not a finesse weapon. It is not a type of weapon that you're going to use a lot of wrist flicks with, which oftentimes I think is the reason why people that are really deep into the sword community automatically don't take giant swords or fancy swords seriously at all. Because they automatically try to use their years and years of experience using actual swords, normal size swords, or even like, let's say, Zweihander, like I have right here. This one's obviously much heavier, but again, I can move it around using very small wrist movements, like pretty much all angles. Wrist movement. Okay, and that obviously incorporates a lot into the movement of sword to guide it towards its target or to find weak points in an enemy's armor. And obviously with like the Montante style that we see him later, I can't really do that here because I'm going to knock everything all over the place. You could do a lot more swinging and manipulation of the blade that you can't really do with giant swords or with the Dragonslayer I have back here. Hence why I call this the Colossus technique an impact technique, a heavy blade technique. It's not meant, at least for beginners, where I feel like I'm at. I feel like I'm very much a very beginner of creating my very own swordman, my own sword skill. It's definitely not a one-on-one duel unless you're fighting somebody who's not as experienced and doesn't really know how to use their blade very well, or they're just overly intimidated by the fact you have this giant sword, which that is a factor too. We have to keep in mind that people are mentally intimidated by what the size of their weapon are, what kind of weapon you have, or how you look.
That I had enough strength, so even if this was made out of metal, or if it was made out of super light material, we could approximate or pretend that it would weigh just about as much as, say, this wooden prop does for me right now. And as a result, it's actually not that bad. I mean, in terms of its weight...
You could not do that with the Dragonslayer.
I noticed something interesting just then, which is why it's always really good to do live tests. It was catching the wind when I was flourishing with it. Spinning it around, the actual flat was kind of catching the wind as I was swinging it around.
And that's a good point he brings up, the wind. So when I'm actually out there in this field with these blades, with the Dragonslayer, the wind does catch it. It does affect how it moves. See, I'm not sure which video this is. This might just be me. There you go. Super tired right there. And the wind will catch the flat of this blade and affect it.
Which was restricting some of the ease in which I was able to just...
Which is why, for a Dragonslayer, you don't do twirly-whirly with it. You gotta be always, the edge is going in the direction you want it to go. It can't be like flat. Sometimes you guys saw me do my uppercut move. It does kind of get a little flat in and kind of pick up the wind a little bit, but I try to keep it minimal. Otherwise, it catches up too much wind and it slows down.
Spin it like that. You can even hear it. That's really interesting. Outside of interesting limitations like that, if you keep your edge on point, okay, you wouldn't change too much of the way you fight with it. The width, you know, would make an interesting kind of thing,
so
just kind of on the flat with, you know,
I don't
catching
really think
the
this
wind.
applies too much
But
to the Dragonslayer
if it was super
much.
light, or you were strong enough to handle it, either it would, you know, there are...
I've been using it now for over a month and a half, and I've lost well
I'm
over
sure you
40
have.
pounds.
Go away.
There are some swords you can find historically that almost match this length, but they weren't meant for combat. They're called bearing swords. We believe them to be mostly ceremonial. But if you had, again, the strength to be able to use something this long, or it was made out of a magical material, okay, any one of those justified reasons...
Or if it was made out of steel.
That's a question. How would you actually fight with it? Now, to match...
So I'm going to say, first of all, his handle is not long enough. It's not long enough. I don't know if he made it or if his friend made it, but that handle is not long enough. It needs to be longer to get the proper amount of leverage on that handle. There's General Spinobi. On that handle in order to actually go out there and strike it. Actually, no, General Spinobi. I actually found Shad's video days before, and I was going to do a response to it. But I did see your comment, but I was trying to get my post stay focused on like getting everyone to vote on what particular name we wanted to call this. Because it's an idea, like I said at the beginning of the video, I've been working on for a while, for months, and it just keeps getting delayed. I was like, we're almost to the new year, so let's just go ahead and kickstart this. But yeah, I did see your comment. Thanks for leaving the comment, but unfortunately, it's like, I kind of wanted to keep everybody focused on this. But for Shad, no, I actually commented, and you can see down here, about 4 days ago.
What was his comment?
Oh, General Spinobi's?
Yeah.
I think he said something along the lines of, I think Shad was talking about giant swords or a giant sword manual or swords, oh, something like that. Yeah, something along that lines.
A lot of the fantasy stuff that we see in video games and other things, we've made it match the width of a lot of the fantasy ones, even though width isn't as necessary. I have a whole video where how would you want to make a two-handed sword? Sorry, a giant sword.
So I actually watched this video. It's pretty good. I do plan on doing a reaction to that one sometime soon. And not like a live reaction. Like right now, I'm kind of just doing it off cuff, and I don't have the best examples. But later on this week, or maybe next week when I have a little bit more time, I'll do a better response video.
Even having something this wide, so not as wide as this, but as wide as my fingers are showing here, right? It would still easily be heavy enough, depending on the width, okay? And it would have to have some measure of width in it, otherwise it would just bend and break. Again, super material, you get away with it. But even if it was just, say, yay wide, it would still be crazy heavy to get all the power you need in it. And having extra width wouldn't really be a necessity, and then you might...
Now, that's what he's right. The extra width really isn't a necessity. If anything, when I actually had my blade made, Dragonslayer made by Pretty Hate Machining, I actually wanted him to shrink it down a little bit to make it a little bit more practical, which I know to most people sounds ridiculous, saying make it more practical, but it did. Reason why is because when you look up Michael Cthulhu, when he does his strikes with his swords a lot, and you can see it in a lot of my earlier videos, like I said, that's the first day. Oh, there we go. This is also not the best example because it was like many months afterwards, and it's finally when I was able to actually strike it more than once. But you go to some of my older videos on my other channel that I had to leave behind, you'll see like it was awful. I would hit it, the target would be impacted, and then they would, and then we're still connected. It disconnects and reconnects. Okay. And then it would flat to the side because one, I didn't have enough control. I also didn't have enough power driving it through. It was more like it was getting dropped down than it was actually me having full muscular control throughout the entire process and swinging it. And also, the thing I'll bring up that somebody brought up, like, hey, like when you strike with something with this Dragonslayer, doesn't all that energy come into your hand and shatter your bones or hurt really bad? No. I discussed at the beginning of this live response video, when you swing the Dragonslayer and you impact on the target, that target takes all that energy. With reason why oftentimes people think like, can you move for a sec, please? Yeah. Reason why people like will experience that with something like a normal sword, you know, like let's say like not a gladius type, but you know, a regular one-handed sword, you know, a regular arming sword. Why while they hit that impact or they feel that vibration, or let's say like those kids with the baseball bat going down the street and they're like playing, you know, pillbox baseball, is because the object you're holding in your hand has a very small amount of mass. So when you hit something with a higher amount of mass with this tiny little object, even if you're swinging it fast, it has to make contact with that much heavier amount of mass, and it deflects back, which then takes that energy and transfers it back to the arm of the wielder. Hence why you get screwed up. Now, with the Swihander, it also may not be the best example because you've got, like, I believe this one's about 7 pounds, 6 pounds of weight, and I'm swinging it. And remember, how fast I'm moving and how much energy I'm putting into it is going to exponentially increase that and multiply the amount of weight and energy that I'm exerting onto the target. But again, even with this, if I hit something fairly hard, I'm going to get some pushback. I don't get pushback with this. There is a video of me charging, and striking an object that's a big wooden stand that we got from some construction that was going nearby, where it was basically a water tank frame for transportation storage. I strike it, I don't feel it, but the cage goes flying. It goes whoosh over. The Dragonslayer, since it hit it at an angle, actually slid down and struck me in the leg, which was my fault because I was, again, being a rookie. I still didn't know what the hell I was doing with this thing. And I transferred all that weight into it and didn't feel anything at all. When you saw a guy saw me earlier chopping the wood, right here, that piece of wood's a lot harder than it looks. And I wouldn't feel it at all. All that energy, all that transfer weight would go straight to the target. So when you've got somebody else, or like I say, it's a heavier sword or a fantasy sword, and you're swinging all that weight and you impact on the object, it doesn't transfer to your arm shatter. It transfers all of it to the target, and it sucks to be the target. Because again, when you think about it, the heavier the object you're swinging and moving around, you're multiplying the amount of force, amount of weight that's behind it. So when I'm swinging it, depending on how fast I'm going, it could be anywhere from really like getting impacted with 96 pounds to thousands of pounds. Think of it like martial arts, right? Martial arts, like really, really good ones where they kick and they punch. They have years of practice. They're turning their like, what, 12, 20-pound arm or their like 50, 60, 80-pound leg into something that's exerting like thousands of pounds of force. So their leg barely feels it, but the target like goes flying. Same concept.
Well, I remember the first time that you did the water jug slaying on the stump.
Yeah.
And the first time that you ever hit the stump, you were shocked at how much you didn't feel it.
Yeah, I actually was kind of worried that I was going to hurt myself, but then I didn't.
Might assume, well, what if you want to block with it? It's not wide enough to block the range of a shield, but I have got another video.
Actually, we have a video of you blocking the water bottle with this.
Kind of, you chucked at me. Okay, so here's another part. The shield sword. Yeah, this is thick and heavy enough, it could deflect quite a bit. And if someone's experienced enough, again, with actually weapons and understands how specifically projectile weapons work, you can deflect quite a bit of projectiles with this. The steel is thick enough. It's about like yay thick that you can actually deflect quite a bit. And in fact, I would even argue you could probably deflect rifle rounds with it. You could probably deflect pistol rounds with it. Definitely shotguns. Now, granted, whether or not your hand is going to survive, because when rounds impact heavy metal objects or any really tough object, they tend to misshapen, deform, and specifically metal, it tends to shatter and spreads like what they call, like, I think it's called spalling or shrapnel all over the place. That's why certain plates that people have in their body armor has that little thick rubber coating, because it's supposed to catch all that extra flak and the extra pieces of the projectile and keep it from go flying all over the place. With this, the guard is sliding over the hand. It is angled in such a way, if it was like to, like, let's say my blade's like this, right? Somebody shoots at me, it falls apart, deflects. Maybe it would completely not touch my hand at all. And if I was like angled in a certain way, protecting myself, yeah, you could literally quite use it as a shield. Now, could you use it as a shield to deflect and stop weapons being stabbed and chopped at you from, let's say, an assailant? Yes, but again, not strong enough. Yes and no, General Spinobi. So what he basically just asked, and that's a good point too, is do I have to worry about chips, nicks, and things like that when cutting things? Not so much wood. It does get nicked. I mean, it's steel. It's not it's hardened steel. The funny part is, and when I do a proper video on this, again, this is just a live reaction. I'm just having some fun, taking a break from working, and I wanted to kind of talk about it a little bit, kind of get some ideas boiling outside. No, it has so much weight behind it, and honestly, this is also why it's kind of like it justifies the width of the blade, because the wider the blade and the thicker the steel, the more weight you have behind it. I have not sharpened this weapon, and when I first got started, I would always stab it into the ground over and over and over and over and over again. Move real quick.
Yeah, really.
Can you get me a piece of paper and cardboard, please?
Really, the only nicks it has are the ones from the rocks.
So, what it would do is it would get a little dull, and it would get little nicks in it, but mostly from rocks. Also, like when I hit that wooden object, shells, or that big cage.
Oh yeah, and you hit a nail.
I hit a nail. Yeah, it would nick a little bit, but you got 48 pounds of steel, so it would demolish it still. But would get nicked. And I generally tend to not hit metal things with it because I don't want to destroy it, because it is a nice piece of equipment. And do I need to sharpen it? I do need to sharpen it, but I also don't. So when you see in the manga and the animes of it's like Dragonslayer not being sharpened, but it's still murdering and massacring people, that's very accurate because it's still like a wedge. So again, I've had this and I've been training with it since January 23rd, 2022 this year. Here's a gift from one of my good friends, Cameron. It's the Egg of the King. Oops. All right. So, let me find a spot. Okay, so this is got some nicks right here, nicks right here. Just see if people can. I think people can see it this way. Okay.
I can take the camera.
It's not like razor sharp, but it will cut through it. Again. Yeah. It's not like... There you go.
You gotta get it kind of like that.
I kind of have to... Honestly, guys, I have to kind of drag it along it. It's sharp, but it's not like shaved. And honestly, I'll be frank with you all. That's a good idea that it's not that sharp, because if it was razor sharp, with all this weight behind it, it would demolish the blade really, really bad. So it's hard to see. I've shown it in other videos. This is more like a wedge shaped. It's very, very much, you can kind of see it where it's slightly wedged down. It comes to a point where it's just like a big old like triangle shaped wedge. And what it does is just demolishes things without losing its shape when it hits something really, really hard. Now, my point with the cardboard is, this should be interesting. Excuse me.
Do you want me to move this chair?
Probably. What I'm going to do... In all my videos... Don't do this at home, kids.
My help?
I probably need some mental help, but no, I'm joking. Let me see if I can get this. I'll do a better video, and I'll answer your question, General Spinobi, a little bit better, but hopefully for now you can kind of see this. So I've stabbed this blade into the damn ground so many times, it's like not sharp at all. But you'll see it in the videos now. Way back when, you can probably see, I don't know, I'll get a better view of it later. It's really beat up. My point is, I don't really need to sharpen it as much for it to still work. It's still going to destroy the target. And honestly, it's kind of a good idea to let it be more of a wedge rather than a really sharp razor edge, because otherwise it's going to lose its ability to destroy. And because it has so much weight behind it, when I hit something, because it is a wedge shape that does have somewhat of a point, it's still going to pile right through. It's still going to cut right through the target, even if it's a hardened target too. Let me grab this. Can you grab this cardboard for me, please?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll hold it. You want to push it down?
On the tip?
Yeah. Just a bit, baby. So see, it still can cut through 2 layers of cardboard. That's good. That's good.
Okay.
So hopefully you guys can see that, but you can still cut through 2 layers of cardboard.
I don't know if they can see it.
We'll see it. Let me see if I can adjust it.
Here, let me...
No, they can see it.
Okay.
Watch, wait. Wait for it, wait for it. We're having to watch a replay, so... Yeah, there it is.
Okay. Zach says, gotta be a tall roof. No, it's a pretty normal roof.
Nope. Alright, my right arm is...
We definitely have some nicks in the ceiling, though.
Yeah, there's a couple of nicks from me messing it up.
Yeah.
Alright, so the one thing I will say about with the way Chad holds it, I don't recommend doing that on the shoulder. Because even like pressing it lightly right now, it hurts. Like this doesn't feel good. You could do it with body armor like the one I have. But like if you're doing it with no skin, like no body armor, like, and I'm talking about it's got to be at least leather, good thick leather, because this blade does cut through my leather glove that I use to wield it quite a bit. And if I rest it on my shoulder,
I mean, not to
that's
mention
gonna cut.
that's like 48 pounds.
Yeah, that's a lot of weight.
Your clavicle can only hold so much pounds of pressure on it.
Yeah, but I'm more worried about my skin. Now, my body armor I have. That was a bit of a core workout. I don't know if you guys saw that. I was literally having to hold it. I could not have done that in January. I would have hurt myself really bad. Okay, so Drill Spinobi, hopefully I answered your question without going too much over a rant. Should I sharpen it? Yes. Do I really need to? No, only the ones that the nicks get really bad, because if they keep impacting on something, they'll keep peeling off. But again, it's hardened steel. PHM, Preheat Machining, made it with good hardened steel, and it's stood up the test of time. The price he charges for it now, again, I hate sounding like I'm shilling for him, but I've got this thing from him 4 years ago. It was a great deal. It was way, way less than what it is now, but it's definitely worth it. Like, it holds up really great. It's good quality. And honestly, he's probably gotten better at making it. There's probably some things here you can look at this and be like, oh my God, it's awful. But do I really need to? No. If I was careless with it and banging metal stuff all the time, probably. But down the road, I do plan on striking things that are a lot harder than just regular wood, but that's for another day. Okay, let's see here. And no, and yes, Zach, it is not a very tall roof.
A shield and a giant sword, and I call it the Schward. It's a joke name. I think.
Now, what you guys saw with me earlier, could I actually deflect people attacking me with this striker? Yes. The thing with it is, if someone is going to actually practically use it, let's say, let's go back in time, right? The European medieval era, right? If someone was actually going to use this weapon and wield it, they would need armor that would also protect them very well. More like not like a gothic style, because that might be too much plate, but a little bit less. Specifically in the shoulders would still have to be loose enough, just like a very small, very, very small pauldron, enough to allow full body movement. But also because the armor would be good to help deflect weapons and any type of like movements or attacks from assailants trying to kill this man with this giant Dragonslayer sword. So it could it be used as a shield? Yes, but a good gauntlet would have to protect the hand. Definitely not the finger gauntlets. It has to be more like a clamshell with thick steel in order to deflect any attacks on it made. And to be honest with you guys, and I'll showcase it in the video I'll make later, if you grab it by the handle and the point is down and somebody comes up to you, you can grapple with them. And part of the techniques I'm going to develop and use is also showing how you can grapple with somebody who thinks, because you hear people say all the time, I would just roll in there and slice and dice you with my 2 katanas and super fast, or my 2 small swords and stab and you'll be dead. I'm like, all I really have to do is get hold of you, hold you still, and bash you in the face with this sword, and you'd be dead. Or just even get it on there and just like kind of press it down on you.
Yeah.
So that's one thing to think about as well.
There's other names you could come up with that would be better with it. That is a giant sword that's wide enough to be used as a shield. We're not going there. We're actually looking at the more stereotypical fantasy giant swords, which usually have about this width to them. How would you fight with it? Now, just like with the one-handed sword, it's
Okay, so let's take a look at how Shad moved it. So Shad, again, it's a wooden sword. It looks like it was put together. You got like a bolt, a bunch of washers. Not bad work, but again, it's not really an accurate assessment of an actual real giant sword. Look how he kind of grabs and flips it with his wrist. Like you can't undo years and years, probably decades of training and experience with swords. And that's what Shad's working against him right now. He may not realize it, is that his experience with swords far outweighs mine. Kind of limits his understanding of how a giant sword could actually be utilized.
Giant swords, which usually have about this width to them. How would you fight with it? Now, just like with the one-handed sword, it's interesting to even compare, I'll pretend, and say, this fantasy giant sword, if it's just as heavy as this wooden one is to me, already,
it would be way heavier.
We got some interesting things. This is a heavy sword. This is heavier than a lot of two-handed swords. And not only...
And to be fair to Shad here, I'm not in the best of shape, but I've been training longer to lift heavy swords than he has. So him saying it's very, very heavy, for him, that's just a deal breaker. He needs something that's nice and small, light, easy to flick around and maneuver. Not the case with the Dragonslayers, especially with giant swords. You have to be strong. You have to have lots of endurance. Like I get smoke checked just from destroying a couple dozen targets, which again, people are like, well, that's useless. Depends on how you utilize it. Again, it's not a one-on-one weapon. And it's definitely not a beginner's weapon. It's somebody who's willing to take the time and experience to build it. And that's why, again, why I'm working on the techniques and different sword manuals.
Is it because of the mass and overall weight? More because of the torque. Because it's so much longer, the stress I feel, and an interesting advantage, because even if the weight is from the torque, it's not so heavy that it's tipping me over like a lot of real fantasy giant swords would be if they were made of metal. If this was metal and it weighed more than me, the point of balance is further out, and it'll literally just even if I have the strength.
Now, Shad's right. If the sword weighs more than Shad, and give Shad credit, maybe it's like 200 pounds. Maybe 220. I don't know. If this thing weighed 220 pounds, he would not be able to lift it. I wouldn't be able to lift it. One of my live videos I did where I was chopping that stump, it actually got stuck in the blade, and I tried to lift it, and I could barely get it off the ground because the weight of that stump probably weighed about maybe 40, 50 pounds, okay? And then on my blade, the tip, that sword might as well turn into 200 pounds. I could leverage it up on the side, but I could not lift it like I can with this Dragonslayer. And that's okay, because honestly, at that point, when you have something that's 200 pounds, like if you go honestly heavier than mine right here, it's just overkill. And it's just impractical. And yeah, it is what I would consider a fantasy category. It looks cool, it looks shiny, but it's not practical at all.
To lift it and throw it a kilometer, if I don't have the weight, like we explored now the video, just...
But you see how he kind of leaned over like that?
If I don't have the weight, like we explored...
No. Because again, if you have the force and the power to lift it, swing it, and strike a target, all that mass and energy is going to be transferred to that target. So even if it doesn't penetrate them or kill them, that they feel the impact. It's kind of it's a similar concept of when someone's wearing body armor and they're shot by a round, and the body armor takes it. The person doesn't get penetrated, die, but all that force of energy is transferred onto them. Let me read this comment real quick. From Athen, well, if you're in full metal armor, I'm not sure the sword would tip you over considering how much. Yeah, again, so like Athen, that's a point I made across earlier. On your comment says if you're wearing, basically you're saying if you're wearing full metal armor, it wouldn't tip you over. Yes, because you now have even more weight towards you, and you're even a heavier center of gravity. So I don't know, it's in here. I heard that you. I'll show it in the next video. Anyways, let's stay focused here. So I had a suit of armor. It weighed probably say maybe about 40 pounds, right? It was good. I had to sell it, whatever. that brings more weight. And also what it does is it also allows me to get away with worse technique. When I'm tired, and I'll throw myself under a bus. Again, this is me in July. When I'm tired, that's not a good example. There you go. Look what I did. And remember, I train with this quite frequently. And this is why I don't quite agree with what Shad says later on about using a over-the-shoulder technique, because it's not a good idea to train like that. You want to train it to be able to lift it like this and be able to hold it. Or like where I do here, where you do the full movements. Oh, that's the stupid one again. Where you do the full movements without using your shoulder for leverage. Okay, boom. I'll flip my arm over here. You'll see in just a minute. Okay, without using the shoulder or the body for leverage. And yeah, my hands were hurting. Guts' hands in the anime, the 2006 anime, and the manga itself. Yes, so I have calluses now here, here, all the way up and down. They're not as profound as Guts' because I'm obviously not spinning all night long, swiping away. And I have been, although I've been playing around with swords since I was a kid, I haven't been consistently doing it. But yeah, I do have calluses all over my hands now, which is quite interesting. And another thing too, let me finish and I'll let you jump in. So, kind of gross, but this is when I kind of started in January. Kind of flabby, kind of soft, not really a lot of development. I look like I told Jan, I look like a weird chicken right here, right? Look at it, there's just nothing there. Just by working out with just Dragonslayer, a lot more mass gained. And this isn't even the most recent one. Traps, delts, rear delts. Like, I never had my rear delts pop out that much. It's a fantastic exercise for full body, except for your chest. It even hits your calves a little bit, because you're just using your full body to really work it. But I try not to show you guys pictures of me being... There we go, there's a better picture right here. Just like, boom. Like that, just the overall development is pretty good. Especially for the obliques. It really works them hard. Alright.
Some of those light red ones down there have you doing like a horizontal strike with it, which Shad's gonna do a horizontal strike soon, and you have some horizontal strikes in those light red ones.
Okay, so I do, like Jenny just said, I have some horizontal strikes.
Not that one.
This one is towards the end of me practicing. I'm tired. So see how I'm practicing to swing it the right way. I struggle. And see how, let's take a look at my leg. Look at my leg again. Leg bends a little bit. Wait, hold on. There we go. Up. This may not be the best example, but this is basically towards the end of me training for a day. And specifically, I make it so my leg bends slightly to take all that impact of the force. Okay, worst one you saying was good?
Those light red ones.
These guys
I don't remember which one it is, but one of them.
We're going to play Russian roulette and figure it out.
Because this is what I used for that short with the Griffith.
I'm obviously mentally preparing for something. Well, there we go. Oof.
It's not the horizontal.
Boom. Okay, so this is good. This is a combo. So I'm a little more rested. See how I did that a little bit with my shoulder? I cheated a little bit. So this is actually a pretty good video using an example of it can be used to attack. It can be used as an actual weapon. But I mentioned earlier in my video, you wouldn't want this guy by himself, especially not with good armor. You'd want some kind of supporting infantry, because this weapon's pretty long and it's devastating. Even if you have your shield and it doesn't break the shield, you're going to be jacked up when you get hit with this thing. You're going to move.
You don't want to be on the impact end of that.
Yeah, it's going to suck.
Yeah.
All right. Whoosh. There we go. And this one here, it's more like me practicing the movements. I'm obviously not striking a target, so I'm doing controlled descent. And that's a lot of things with my videos as well. That one was not controlled descent.
And you can see
Whoosh.
the impact on the ground
It
just
goes
right
deep,
there.
Deep into the ground. Big old giant line. And again, I'm still maintaining some level of control. And again, the target is at the bottom. Now, if it's a standing person, which I do want to get a dummy, it just, I don't really have full-time access to this field. So it is very possible that this can be used as a real weapon. This type of weapons, fancy weapon, the giant sword, can be used as something to attack others. I think with my...
That's a picture.
Yep, I'm being goofy here. See, I stabbed into the ground. The good thing about this armor right here is I think that'd be the good level armor someone would need. Obviously, with a little bit more protection around the rib cage. I would use Arm Street's their Dark Knight armor as a good example because it has those overlapping plates that allow for much more movement. I think that'd be a good one to have. All right, let's get back.
Now the video just tipped me over like that. But okay, now we can pretend I either have the strength to lift something metal and it weighs as heavy as this, and then my weight is grounding me enough so I don't tip me over. So we can pretend I have that, or it's the super light material that's also really strong that makes it the same approximate weight as this would stack. So let's explore other stances. So I did mention kind of a wrath or on the shoulder stance like this, and
okay, now why is that one not a good stance? Now again, Shad's has a lot of experience with sword skill mastery. The problem with the stance,
other stances,
and like chucking
so I did mention kind of a wrath
like
or on the shoulder stance like this,
or like a baseball
and if
bat,
it's a sharp.
The more sudden twisting movements you do, like you see mine, I look kind of stiff when it comes to my abdominals. And the reason why I'm so stiff, well, I won't show this video. The reason why I'm so stiff is because I'm actually engaging my obliques and my core the entire time in order to protect my back. And when I impact, although it kind of looks like I'm still facing forward, I'm actually getting a lot of the impacts onto my obliques, which takes the force of impact off of my lower back, which you don't want because it will jack you up so quick. With his right here with the shoulder, problem with that is it encourages you too much to use your spine to twist, which is going to mess you up.
Blade, you want some type of padding or something so it doesn't cut you, of course. Yep. That would work decently enough. Holding it honestly right up vertical is pretty darn good. And you can keep it elevated. You don't need to keep it elevated too much, but...
Now, so now we're he's actually pretty right for that one. You can hold it up for a period of time. We start
with 100. But there, what's interesting, because the...
Should have got... Let's see here. Let's do shorts.
Sean Connery died.
No, go away.
We want our shorts.
Our shorts. Okay, so this is quick.
Squat thrusts. That's holding it up.
Yeah, but watch. Again. Now, what you don't see is that I'm actually way back there. We had to cut this short. And I'm running with it like this. Across a very uneven field in the middle of the night. I'm literally like the adult version of that kid that mom told him not to run with scissors. I'm like doing the worst thing. That's me.
Yeah.
Now you see me have it back here a little bit because I'm getting ready to exert some force to push it forward. But to be honest with you guys, I didn't really swing down my full effect. I wanted to make sure that I hit the damn pumpkin because I didn't want to keep doing it over and over again. One more time. Otherwise, if I actually swung it down the way, probably would have gone through that whole entire container pumpkin and straight to the ground.
Definitely.
All right, enough of David being a goofball. Another one?
Yeah.
Currently owned. It's much lighter than yours. Not as long. Not as hard thick. So it weighs only like 16 pounds. Yeah. So what I would recommend, jump on my Instagram account. I kind of use that to like show the kind of workouts and movements I do with it. First, focus on making your stances and your form perfect, like stationary. Build it up slowly. If your 16-pound sword's too heavy, what you can do is go to the gym, find like a little pole or something, if your gym has it. If not, maybe you can order it online, have it sent to your house. Get like those little barbells that you can put those weights on, and you can like either, I don't recommend the ones you have to spin because it's kind of hard. If you do only can get that one, get like some duct tape and wrap one side of it, and kind of put like regular pole, put like maybe 2.5, 5 pounds, and start doing full body movements with it. Kind of like almost like you're chopping an axe, and kind of mimic a lot of the things I'm doing with the Instagram account, and then build up. Because what you want to do is you want to get your body used to moving that kind of weight in that kind of form. That way, when it comes time to actually put out and do the real thing with your 16-pound Dragonslayer that you have, you could do it in an effective manner and not hurt yourself, and you can exert a lot of power and force into it. Because 16 pounds is still pretty damn heavy. It's way heavier than probably the wooden sword Shad has here, and it's also it's probably gonna look really freaking cool. And then if you want to move up to heavier weights, you're going to pay a lot more money for it, obviously, because it takes a lot of work to build that. But you're going to be successful in not hurting yourself. And that was the biggest thing, because when I got started with this, let me click here, videos. What I really started off with, honestly, guys, is this Y-hander. You see me swinging it back and forth. And pulls. So I had a forearm pull workout. I'm just being a goofball right here.
Today's date is March 20th.
A little bit. And these are basically two, not rebars.
His
like
name wasn't really
poles,
Kitty
like
Toe,
stakes
but
that you
that's
put in
what
there
it
in the
sounded
metal.
like.
They weigh about 4 or 5 pounds, and I would work out with those first. And what that did was I would mimic the movements I wanted to do, but I also get used to my body holding weight out ahead of me. Because in the end, with your 16-pound Dragonslayer, you want to get used to doing full-body ballistic movements. But you want to start off stationary. That way you can build up that muscle mass and that core strength, also that shoulder girdle strength, and overall body intensity, in order to then eventually move on to full ballistic movements. Because you don't want to remain stationary. That's lame and that's boring. You want to eventually graduate to more a mobile type of workout where, like, okay, I've got the stationary down. I worked all the way up. I can handle my 16-pound sword great. Now I want to move with my 16-pound sword and decimate whatever it is that you're decimating with it. Long story short, start small. Don't be afraid of starting too small to build it up. Because it's one thing to own the 16-pound sword. It's one thing to own the 48-pound Dragonslayer. It's another thing to actually build yourself up to be able to wield it. Which is what I'm hoping to do with my techniques I'm showing people as well, as what I've been able to do so far. I started small. When I tried to start off with this, I hurt myself. I hurt my forearms. I hurt my back twice. And my elbow got jacked up. And I had to learn. I had to step back, and I had to like, okay, well, this isn't working. I'm screwing myself up. Let me start small. All right.
Blade is so wide, you can even rest it on the shoulder like that. And that's actually quite comfortable.
It's comfortable because he has an actual cross guard, and because it doesn't weigh a lot. Otherwise, that'd be very uncomfortable. Even when I was running like a little crazy loon, which this guy right here, it's not resting on my body. It's held up. I'm engaging, and I push it back a little bit. So I don't agree with that one, Shad, but again, not judging it too harshly.
And I don't need to hold all the weight on my arms anymore.
Okay.
And this is pretty good. Actually, right there isn't bad at all. And so one of the other
problem with that, where he's holding it, you cannot exert enough force from that position. From here to any type of strike, it's going to be more like you're just dropping the blade. That's why, for mine, and for the way to really do it, is you have to use leverage or movement in order to swing it down. You still have to put a lot of force behind it. From right here, not a good spot. Girls XYZ, find love on the new dating site. I don't believe you, Girls XYZ. Go away.
Actually, right there isn't bad at all. And so one of the other kind of elements of this video...
think you show something
for
right
supergiant swords, because we see in video games supergiant swords a lot, and oftentimes the way that they're fought with is really bad. Like if we look...
So that's actually kind of how it's done. Let's try to slow this down a little bit. All right, playback speed, we'll do half.
Oftentimes the way that they're fought with is really bad.
No. So it's starting from a resting point, which it's this giant sword. Like I already mentioned earlier, you don't need a fine razor edge in order for it to be deadly. The fact that it has so much weight, it could literally be dual. If you hit somebody with it, it's going to kill them. Resting on the ground, lifting it up, and strike using your full body. See how, again, he's using his full body? Boom.
It's pretty
That's
pretty
actually
accurate.
pretty good. That's accurate. That's how you want to use it. Because, again, like I said, it's an impact weapon. Especially if like you're just beginning, you don't have full control over it, or it weighs a lot. Yeah, he's hitting the ground, like I did with some of my videos, but if you actually transfer that energy into a person, it's going to knock them on their ass. Or kill them. Probably both.
Yeah.
So, Shad, no, I don't agree with that one.
If we look at look, I love Elden Ring. We look at the animation specifically.
Okay. The thing with the uppercut, I will agree, it's not a good strike. For me, I use the uppercut, and I think of the uppercut like you saw in my one video, more like a preparatory movement, like I'm preparing to move it up, so then I can swing it down. Yeah. And in fact, what I've done recently is I'll step forward by swinging up, transition, and then move forward, taking all that movement energy into the swing down.
They're swinging it about wildly, over-swinging in a really crude, uncontrolled fashion. And I think there are ways that you would fight with it much more realistically that could still convey the weight, speed, and strength behind the strikes that look far more controlled and precise, like you've actually trained with it. And that's what I'm kind of want to explore in this video, is ways to fight in a more controlled way that's more realistic, more functional, that perhaps could be adopted into video games. I'll just show an example of the way that could be done. Shoulder into it. Kind of like what they do in Monster Hunter. They have that giant sword where it does this big sweep.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. So you're not going to go spinny, twirly-whirly around with it. You're going to get sunk into the mud and you're not moving.
And the body is flying up as it hits and stuff. You could get away with that. Another way to recover. See what I did then? So when I was down, right, lifting it, leveraging it on my arm, and then pulling up like that is the way, like, much easier. It makes it make it resting kind of, not center of balance, but...
Again, the problem with it, I know he's messing around. He's making a cool video. People are going to watch it because it's cool. It's also Shadiversity. It has a pretty big audience. The problem with relying completely on just using the shoulder as, leverage is, one, you're tired using bad movement. You don't really have good control and aim where it's going. Far less than if you're actually guiding it using both your arms and your shoulder girdle. Because again, you don't really use a lot of wrists. Wrists are pretty much locked, just maintaining grip of that pommel of that weapon. You can't be doing none of this stuff. A little bit, but not really that much. It's really all the shoulder girdle, okay? And then obviously movement. So with that, the shoulder, like twirling it right there, you just don't really have a lot of good stuff. And you're also losing a lot of strength because you're taking too much energy by balancing it on your body, and you're having less transfer of energy into your target. Take it, for example, grab this with your arms right now, like out here, and swing it down. You're going to get a lot more power. Now, do this number.
No, definitely.
Your body's already working against you. It isn't working.
You know what I'm doing. It's a leverage point.
You also, it's the honest truth is, guys, is that the sword weight is also your ultimate weapon. The reason why your sword weighs so much is because you want that weight to hit your target, and that weight makes your strikes even more powerful. Athen. So, Athen, with Monster Hunter 2, you got to keep in mind, can you hand me the Y-hander real quick? So, a lot of those dragons in Monster Hunter, I mean, I agree with you. They're ridiculous. They look goofy, and sometimes it's like, did you really just make a sword out of like a dragon's jaw? I mean, is that really the best weapon? But honestly, I can't kill a dragon with this. I mean, maybe if I get it in the eye or the throat.
Maybe you could floss its teeth.
Maybe somewhere. Yeah, maybe it opens its mouth and I stab into there. But honestly, this is not gonna hurt that dragon. It doesn't exert enough force. It doesn't have enough weight of impact when it strikes the dragon to penetrate those heavy scales, break those bones. This does. And these ridiculous swords they have in there, at least the ones that aren't like, okay, like you're just lugging around a log, basically, it does. So, like the way that Shad designed this giant sword, if it was all metal, that would be realistic because you have extra weight. Like, see how he has these ridges right here for strength and for show? That adds more weight, which then again transfers more energy and more impact into your target. So for mine, if I had to go kill a dragon, I would take my Dragonslayer. Not this. I can hit that damn dragon 100 times with this thing. I might do some damage, but it's probably not going to die. That Dragonslayer is going to do some damage. Like, let's think of it this way, okay? Jenny brought up the clavicle earlier. The clavicles, if you put 5 pounds of like specific pressure point on a clavicle, it can snap. Or probably less. It really depends on whose clavicle we're talking about, right? All right, how about your shins? If you put a certain amount of pressure on a certain point, less the likelihood of hurting a giant monster in Monster Hunter with this little Zweihander that's 7 pounds than I would if I get in a good strike with that guy. And through the videos I've shown you guys and through my other videos on my channel and through my Instagram,
you would not have been able to chop through that stump with the Zweihander.
Yeah, well, that Jenny just said too. With the stump, I could not chop it through with the Zweihander. I could do it with this. So if you were actually fighting giant dragons and monster hunters, you would want a sword like this. Now, would I need a sword twice this size? Not really. You'd only want to put more mass into your weapon if it's made of a weaker material. But in that case, why would you want to use weaker material? We have modern
I mean, yeah, if you're using like a dinosaur jawbone, it's probably not very heavy, in which case maybe you do want to add some more stuff to get some more weight behind that swing.
So the thing with Monster Hunter is it's supposed to look cool, it's supposed to look flashy. You're supposed to Monster Hunter wants to represent like what monsters you killed. You know that. I don't mean to insult your intelligence, but for me, it's like actually a sword like this would be realistic, what you want to take for a giant hunt like that. But those people would also be training for that their entire lives. Shad and the guys are much better at sword fighting. They don't train with giant swords their whole lives. And I've been doing it for a year, and it's still, I'm not like super crazy and amazing. I'm getting there. Me too, cat. Speaking of Monster Hunter, cats. Cooking cats.
Oh, I know. I love the cooking
So I do think those swords actually are realistic, just not the ones that aren't metal. Moving on.
Has more leverage, lift it up. I can't lift it up one hand. I literally cannot lift it up one-handed like that. But if I do this, suddenly I can much easier. Interesting little trick.
As you either ruin your armor, cut yourself, have it get stuck between the plates in your metal armor.
And again, it's if you're using... Okay, I know he's just... Look, I know he's joking around. I know he's messing around. I know he thinks it's ridiculous. If you train with bad form, you're going to perform worse. Okay, you guys saw me when I got tired. I went from doing great to all of a sudden having to do this and then use basically half-ass my technique. If you train with bad technique, you're going to perform with worse technique. Okay, that would probably blow out your shoulder, and your shoulder wouldn't get built up enough to the point where it can actually handle it properly, or even when you do it improperly. And that's also why, like, when I'm performing and I'm attacking, I don't always use perfect form. I use close to it. Also because I train my body with perfect form, just as an example, that I can my body kind of adjusts to it without being too badly affected. That would probably blow out your shoulder, what he's doing right here. Like, that's not a good way to do it.
Cannot.
Because again,
it's not one-handed like that.
We
but if
are
I do this,
not
suddenly I can much easier.
Non-organic.
Interesting little techniques that we figure out. So from this position, you can also push it into a sideways.
Do not do what he just did, please, for the love of God. Don't even try. Okay. Again, Shad, if you're watching this for some weird reason, I doubt it, because I'm probably an hour into this. Don't do that.
But if I do this, suddenly I can much easier. Interesting little slash, like so. Recover up. So I think this is actually one of the best. And what's interesting about that sideways slash, I was able to use my shoulder as a bit of leverage to kind of push it off into that
we do
slash
have a video
that way. And so that works pretty well.
Horizontal strike, but not
another
that
stance.
way.
Let's think about
this.
this.
No, not
right?
from your shoulder.
Another
that
one.
Would be ridiculous.
Now
Push
again
it
with that
into that slash that way.
My problem is
Look at what his knees and hips are
push
doing
it
when
off
he's
into that
like,
slash that way.
It's just you
and
don't
so that
have a
works
stable
pretty
enough
well.
platform. It's not effective, and you're just trying to nudge it off. If you to get an actual proper full horizontal strike, it has to be behind you, and you have to move the whole body forward to really get the momentum going in order for it to strike. Honestly, horizontal strikes are the worst when it comes. No, the worst.
Not the worst.
The worst when it comes to fighting anything, striking anything with giant swords, because you have so much of gravity working against you. The point of giant swords is to use their weight to your advantage, okay? When you do horizontal strikes, you're taking away that huge advantage, and now you're just swinging it horizontally. Like you're having, like, think of it like grabbing a bag of concrete. It's not the best way to do it. You can do it because it looks fancy, but it's not the best way to utilize your weapon. Let gravity be your friend. If you do horizontal strikes, no.
Gravity's
working against you. It's pulling that bar down the whole time, so you're losing so much energy trying to slash it across by just trying to keep it upright, keeping yourself moving forward. It's not good. Always downward strikes. Always.
Yeah, because we have
now one day maybe, but you'd have to have amazing core strength.
Well, that's like even when you did the horizontal strike, like I mean, you did like
I was weak or
what?
like
No, you did one recently. Here, go to sword videos. It's the one I used for the Griffith.
Are you sure that's it?
I think that one's it.
I look like I'm just standing tall and proud.
Because it's right before we start. You were getting eaten by mosquitoes.
I love the mosquitoes. Okay, so here we go. Ready? See how weak that was? I don't care. I'll put myself down. Look. Okay.
It's not the best strike.
Boom. I didn't even get the full blade in
No,
there.
you can see it tips. You're not even hitting with the blade most of the way through the strike.
Well, you would still get hit by it.
For sure. You'd get knocked over.
But see how I don't have as much energy in that? Okay, so one more time. Whoosh. Now, let's look at... Where's the other one? This one. I think this might be an uppercut.
I think this is a combo.
Yeah, I'm just practicing.
There's some choppies up there at the beginning.
There we go. I think this is one. Okay, it's resting on the ground. I think we're just trying to be cool. So, actually, you know what would be the best one would be when I'm destroying that. Okay, so, here. Jenny making me wait.
Get some comments.
Sure I do.
It says, but guts
Boom!
makes horrors.
All right, here we go. Here we go. Fine. Sorry. Watch this. This is live, sue me. Watch. Wham! So, I put my energy into it. I put the weight of the sword into it, and I use gravity to my benefit to slice that thing down and went right through this super thick stump. You couldn't do that with his right-hander because it doesn't have enough matter behind it. Because I wasn't doing a horizontal, I was doing vertical. Okay, what's up?
Well, General Spinobi says Guts makes horizontal strikes with the Dragonslayer looks cool.
It does look cool.
Which he does.
It does. It looks cool.
It looks very cool when Guts does it.
But it's just...
It's not the best way to use it.
It's just... I mean... Eh. It looked cool. Maybe if I speed it up. Like... Here we go. We'll go twice the speed. Whoop. Whoosh. There you go. So when I get twice as fast as I could possibly ever be, then it will look super awesome.
And then Athens says, but what about diagonal? If you want to look at that.
Do diagonal too. So again, straight down, over, diagonal, yes.
Pretty sure we have some diagonals in
We have some diagonals in there, but I don't want to like waste too much time. But yeah, and we'll do a better response video. This is just a live. Yeah, diagonal cuts too. Because again, you're still using momentum of gravity and still using the full benefit of gravity to bring that sword down to really impact your target. Horizontal slashes, they're not the best. It's more flashy. I would use horizontal flashes. Or flashes. Flashes. I would use horizontal slashes to intimidate a crowd. Again, you can intimidate people with this weapon, and that's part of the purpose of it too, of it being so large. There's an intimidation factor. Just like when people see like giant swords or something like, whoa, that's crazy. Oh, the guy's swinging around. There's an intimidation factor that goes with it. And as long as you're not a numbskull trying to drag this thing out of your daddy's closet and it's like, oh, I'm going to swing it now and look like an idiot, it could be pretty intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
Another stance. Let's think about this, right? Another one might.
So another thing, Afton, another technique I've been working on is like instead of like straight down, what I do is specifically for people that think they're going to be cute and like try to dodge to the side because they see me practice. Like all you can do is just this stuff. Is I have a twist and then diagonal strike, and then I lift it up again straight, and then twist diagonal strikes again.
Might actually be something, I don't know, if you had a glove that you could hold it, something like this might actually...
No. Could you get my gloves, please?
Yeah.
No.
You guys have a Discord server. We're working on it.
You know, actually, General Spinobi, part of it, what we're going to do next is a Discord server and then bring all the people that we really like on it.
All the people that we like.
We're just not a production studio, so things move slow. And it's kind of even though it's a holiday season, my work's picking up a lot. So that's also why I push this out so fast, because I'm trying to get things moving forward. So in this glove, right here, and I'll try to push it up and wait a minute to see if it fits. You guys can see it.
Is it zooming in?
Yeah. In this glove, you can see cuts. Good.
I brought your body armor too.
And it is not a good idea to do that. And again, why I say that is specifically for if you're a beginner at wielding a giant sword, or should I say a beginner of the Colossus technique. I gotta start using that now. You don't want to do things that are going to set you up for failure when you're tired, because you're going to get tired fast. And if you practice bad, you're going to find out way too late that you made a mistake. Thank you. So no, I don't recommend you do like Shad is doing and wield it like that. One, there's no benefit to it at all. Maybe, like I said earlier, if you're drawing someone close, again, people that think they're cute and they want to get nice and close, and you can like deflect their weapon, or their weapon can get impacted upon your plate. Because the way I envision it as well is that those who will be using the Colossus technique, wielding giant swords, they're also going to have to get used to moving their body to take the impact of lesser weapons that they know their plate armor could take, and then strike the opponent. So that's a lot of things that people that are like super fancy fencers or sword masters, whatever, like I'll just move real quick, stats up. Not really. You can, but it's also not that simple too. I think too many people...
We did that test, though, of you doing a bunch of different movements with the Dragonslayer and the Zweihander, and you still moved pretty fast, even with the Dragonslayer.
So I did a test. It was another live on the other channel that also had me like run with the Zweihander, run with the Dragonslayer, strike with the Zweihander, strike the Dragonslayer, and the speed difference wasn't as crazy as people would think. I think a problem is a lot of people watch anime these days, and again, that's why I think like we should re-explore our Lost Sword arts. Because like even with Berserk, like you'll see like Casca, Rickert, Griffith charge in with like these full-plated knights, and they'll just like go poop, boop, boop, and just like murder these people with one little poke from these tiny little swords, and they like got full plate armor on, and they're like getting murdered and massacred like they don't even have anything on at all. And it's like that's not really that easy to kill someone wearing armor. It's a hell of a lot harder than we think. And honestly, you don't want to really be wrestling with somebody who has basically what amounts to a guillotine in their hands.
No, which is what the Dragonslayer is.
Work, because again, gloves to prevent yourself from cutting your own hand. You can rest a sword like that. You would never need to with a real sword because they're so light, but this is so heavy, right? Again, if you have...
It's so heavy that it would really cut your... You notice and it's too late. Now you damaged your hand. So I don't recommend this one, Shad, because for personal experience, just from lightly holding it, I gained no benefit from it. No advantage whatsoever by holding on that blade, and I sliced through this leather.
The strength, you could avoid the cut with a metal glove or something like this. This is actually not...
And you guys, if you saw earlier when I was cutting the paper with my Dragonslayer, it's not that sharp. It's not like a fine cut. It's still cut, but it's not great. It will slice right through this leather just for the pure weight. Especially when you start moving. It just... Think of it like... similar to like a serrated saw blade, right? You can kind of hold it, no big deal. But as soon as you start moving that guy, woof. But now put 40 pounds.
Well, yeah, because this is from, not even from you practicing. This is just from you carrying it on the track up to our field where we do the filming.
Just carrying it, not even like moving, doing anything.
Bad, because it gives you that extra leverage point to push off into a quick attack. Were you there?
No.
Just push off into a slash.
Right you would there. Really hurt your hand.
You go around, get it into one, and then you recover, and you're good to go. It's interesting how much...
Shad, I love you, man. I really do. I don't mean disrespect, but no. I'll do a better video, guys. I just, like I said, I'm trying to get some stuff done. I probably actually need to end the live soon, but... I like Shad. I get he's just BSing right now, but no.
I'm leveraging with my shoulder to recover. I think you would probably want to do that in combat, especially if you need to be quick. Like, if it hit ground, you had an enemy there, it'd be much easier just push it there, bang it off. Wow, that's really interesting. So, even in combat, where I got it here, and I leverage off my shoulder to push it into a cut, land there, then I can leverage it up, I can push it down. Wow, you incorporating the shoulder as a rest and leverage point to launch off of, it's really effective. I really think you could build a whole combat system around this kind of shoulder rest / leverage, not only position, but movement style, where you're there and you can push it off sideways, and then you can leverage it up over that shoulder, hit, and then again,
and you tear up your armor.
Jack up your elbow so bad. Guys, I can't. You can't do that. Like, again, this is me.
6 months in of practicing.
You can't. You're gonna jack yourself up. Even look when I lift it up. You can't do that. You can't do that fancy twirly. Oof. I get what he's saying, and then see how I kind of like rolled over my shoulder. Yeah, I'm also tired, and it's not good. It doesn't lead to the most effective strikes.
I mean, the thing is, with these giant swords, they're also dangerous to the wielder.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very dangerous for Dave when he's practicing with it, because he's swinging this 48-pound
you can spin it around, get back on that, leverage it over that shoulder. And this is just really interesting where, you know, you have this whole movement system where you get there and then you can push it off and just go bang, then back in position like that. That's a really intriguing style that has a lot of practical benefit because it's so long and heavy, just that extra leverage. I love it. One of the things you might have noticed is that with a lot of the experimentation...
I wonder if Shad's watching my videos.
Like, I don't know.
I've had random people message me from all over the place. I guess I've been placing Discord servers and stuff.
I'm doing. I'm focusing a lot on slashes, and that's one of the main focuses I think you would generally end up doing, because your area of attack, your threat range is huge with this thing because it's so long, and you can do these big wide slashes just like we see with Montante treatises. What we can't really do with Montante are like underarm slashes because it hits sideways and hit up, and you can try and go sideways and hit it, but you can't let it hit the ground. And so sideways, up, but I'm not sure the benefit is there. Then there are, of course, downwards attacks, which I definitely think have a lot of power. They'd be much easier to dodge.
So bad.
Because this has such
Athen agrees.
wide
Tendons would be
area of
absolutely
effect.
torn. Ouch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. Like, so for me,
your defensive.
I'm not focused on the red muscles. I'm focused on the tendons, ligaments. Those are the things that need to get strong enough in order to handle this. And the spina recti, the core, everything, the hip girdle, the shoulder girdle. I'm not worried about how big my biceps look. Biceps, trust me, you want a good workout, do some of the stuff I do on Instagram, you'll feel in your biceps the next day. I promise you. Or you'll feel it immediately afterwards. With him, I get it, he's just messing around, but it's like, Shad, no. Yeah.
And offensive range is huge.
Well, and you've had some of your
focus a lot on those types of strikes.
With their swords,
and anyone who wanted to get you would have to get
some
inside.
Some of the berserkers I have done stuff that hurt themselves. I'm not going to say who, because that's not cool. But yeah, some of them also, they had some back issues as well from doing too much. And that's why I always say start small, build up. Make it so your obliques take the impact, not your back. And I get it. Don't use my crazy whatever videos where I'm like in the moment, because I train the proper way. That way you get tired, your form doesn't go completely to crap.
Mm-hmm.
Area of a threat. And the only way to dodge is, they're really lucky, dodge under or over or back or try and deflect. I wonder what the recoil would be with something so heavy, because I don't see a big hit and it bounces off. But if it does, you just rest it back there.
Nope.
Good to go again.
It's not going to bounce off.
It's just going to
It's going to go through.
You should get the mattress one.
Or slide down.
I think more often you would hit the person off balance, honestly. Now, when it comes to spinning, there are certain spins I think you could get away with a sword this large. Oftentimes you won't need to, because doing like a full area attack like this, spinning and offending your back like that, right, is probably quicker than trying to do a whole like, you know, the thing they see in video games.
Oops. Oh. His castle. Oh no.
Oh, I just damaged my castle. That would have really hurt if it hit someone who could have did. We'll have to try and fix that.
Yeah, it would.
Try and
what
pop the.
You
know what he didn't do though? So let's go back.
Deflect. I wonder what the recoil would be with something so heavy.
He's talking about recoil,
because I don't see a big hit and it bounces off. But if it does, you just rest it back there. Good to go again.
There wasn't any recoil.
I think more often you would hit the person off balance, honestly. Now, when it comes to spinning, there are certain spins I think you could get away with a sword this large. Oftentimes you won't need to, because doing like a full area attack like this, spinning and offending your back like that, right, is probably quicker than trying to do a whole like, you know, the thing they see in video games.
Boom.
It just knocked it out of his hands.
See how it's just slightly deflected?
I just damaged my castle.
He kept going.
Trying to do a whole
Even this wooden sword has enough mass to it that it hits it, but it keeps going without it completely flying back on the user. And again, that's what I think a lot of people's misconception about is they're thinking about smaller things, like a smaller like gladius, a smaller arming sword, a one-handed sword, or even a bastard sword, hitting a much larger object and having that thing vibrate and then come back to you. Not so much when you got something this heavy. It just it ain't happening. It's gonna go through, or it's gonna come to a stop and do a lot of damage.
You know, the thing they see in video games.
Didn't even notice.
Yeah.
Look at his arms. So check out Shad's arms.
Like, you know, the thing they see in video games.
Notice how I didn't go flying? Didn't like, just kept going.
Yeah, it just turned on its side.
I just
like what happens
castle.
sometimes when you hit things.
That would really hurt.
Enough about that.
You can take. It's a wide area of effect.
There he is again with that wrist.
So hand spins.
He just hit himself. Okay.
Oh, he would be dead.
Okay, so here's the other thing with the giant sword. Like, okay, again, giant swords.
with a hand one.
If you hit yourself, you are in trouble.
It's a wide area of effect.
There's another reason, too, why you guys don't see me going too crazy and doing all sorts of silly stuff. Because if I screw up, I'm donezo. Like, having a helmet on makes it really hard. Doing without a helmet, I have, at times, just straight up just pushed the sword to the side and moved out of the way because I felt like I did not have enough control. With what he just did, hitting himself in the head like that, is exactly why you're not doing spinny twirly whirly, because you're going to just... It's like being scalped. If this blade, at any speed, touches my soft skin on my head and drags, I'm getting scalped.
Show how quickly it sliced your arm on that first video when you did the flip
I mean,
over
I
your
don't
arm.
even need to. They saw the blood at the beginning. It just was a simple. It was just a simple rollover, guys. And like I showed you with the shoulder pad, with my plastic body armor there, and my gloves right here. Again, that blade's not that sharp. It's not razor sharp.
And you didn't even feel it when it happened.
I didn't feel what happened. But
it wasn't until I pointed out, like, "Hey, you're bleeding."
Yeah.
And you're like, "Oh."
But the weight of it is what gives. It's also what gives it the advantage. It's a completely different world. He's funny. He's also getting tired.
He's getting dizzy.
He's dizzy.
Okay, so first problem. Makes you very dizzy. I am seeing stars. Some really interesting observations then. One, the centripetal force that the sword had, that was actually, I felt it. I was pulling my arms out as I was spinning. The interesting result of that, though, is that actually helped counteract my own kind of backwards, push when I was spinning to help me spin easier, because there was a balancing force that was kind of pulling me back in, which was the centripetal force of the sword. So, well, defending such a wide area, people would be very reluctant to hit you. One of the issues is recovering from the spin, because I was fully just like, going like that, and trying to recover. I think you could, into a strike, or as you're going around, just hook it on your shoulder.
I mean, you could. The problem is you would be a danger to your allies around you, because again, I don't think this is a unsupported type of fighting style, at least not beginner. The Colossus technique requires you to have some level of support, or you be enough of a good swordsman or in a position where you could fend off of opponents. Spinning around twirly-whirly like that, it's not going to work. Again, you're also using the horizontal, the weight of gravity is pulling down your blade, so you're having to work so hard and spin around. It's just, no, it's silly. It's funny to look at, watch him get dizzy, but it's just, it's silly.
To go like that. So perhaps the recovery is fine. If it's slower, there's no real point, because you can achieve just as
this giant sword. I also have an idea for a new giant sword design that can incorporate a shoulder rest in its actual blade. Kind of like a giant version of a ricasso. A ricasso is a blunted portion of the blade.
You would fight with a super giant sword. Techniques that would be helpful. Assist. Love to read them in the comments below. Please do. Hope to see you here on the next video on Shadiversity. And until that time, farewell.
You know, I don't think I'm done exploring the mechanics of how you'd fight with a giant sword. I had so much fun with this one and learnt so much from my experimentation. I just really want to do more. So stay tuned. Please do subscribe if you haven't, because coming up in the next month or so, I'm going to experiment with chaining a series of moves, a move set, combo attacks, all with this giant sword. I also have an idea for a new giant sword design that can incorporate a shoulder rest in its actual blade. Kind of like a giant version of a ricasso. A ricasso is a blunted portion of the blade just above the hilt of a regular sword. And adding that to a giant sword as a shoulder rest so you can more easily incorporate the shoulder leveraging moveset in combat. And now I'm wondering if it's even possible to actually make a functional giant sword. These are all really cool things that I can't wait to explore. Stay tuned, do subscribe so you don't miss out. Hope to see you there.
So I don't understand what Chad's getting at. Maybe he's just trying to expand on his things. I mean, there's already like giant swords made by tons of people. The new market, but I already been working on it for a year. So I don't know. I guess now I'm racing against a guy with 1.46 million subscribers. Crap.
He doesn't have a 48
This one video has more views than our entire channel. Oh Lord. All right. Well,
if he were to get a 48-pound sword, he would quickly realize that these moves wouldn't work.
Yeah, but he has the assets and resources to have a farther and faster reach than I do. So, looks like if I'm going to actually finish doing this, I got to hurry up. All right, Shad, you threw down the gauntlet. Time for me to get to work. Let's do this. Anyways, thank you all for watching today. I got to get back to work. Super tired, but got to do it. So this is fun. I wish Shad luck. I guess may the best giant swordsman win. We'll see you all later.
Bye.